YouTube. Philly J with Different Dimension Gaming, coming at you with my pure build of the Scareclaw deck. So earlier this week we did Adventure Scareclaw, and since then I have been able to both find and implement a replacement for Barone. So with that being said, let's dive in. I think going forward, the pure version is how I'm going to play the deck personally. I think it's less powerful, but it's more fun for me. So we're going to start once again with our 3 copies of Scareclaw Reichphobia. When he's normal or special summoned, you can add a Scareclaw spell trap from your deck to your hand. And if he is special summoned and there are 3 or more monsters in defense position once he hits the field, so including himself, you can, after you search, draw 1 card. It's one of the better starters in your deck, but he's actually not the best normal summon, because the best normal summons are your other Scareclaw monsters. In Scareclaw Astra, which we're also playing 3 of. So all the Scareclaws have the same summoning condition, including Reichphobia, where if you control another Scareclaw, you can special summon any other Scareclaw, including one of its own name, to an adjacent zone. So if you have Astra here, you can summon another Astra right here. And then all of the level 3 Beast Scareclaws will give your Scareclaw Tryhard a different effect. So Astra, for example, will let it attack up to the number of monsters you have in defense position. So, and that's your whole field, not just the ones that it points to. So if you've got 5 monsters in defense position, your Tryhard can attack 5 times. We're going to play 3 copies of Scareclaw Acro. Once again, it can summon itself from the hand, and when it's in defense position, it gives your Scareclaw Tryhard 300 attack for each defense position monster on your side of the field. So if you have Astra and Acro and our 2 copies of Balloon, which gives your Scareclaw piercing damage. So if you've got 5 monsters in defense position, you have got a 4,500 attacker that can attack 5 times and does piercing damage, which is pretty crazy. And then for the last of the Scareclaws, we are... oh my goodness, I'm cutting them off. For the last of the Scareclaws, we are playing 2 copies of Scareclaw Kashtira. You can special summon a Scareclaw Kashtira from your hand, but you have to banish a Scareclaw or a Vsauce Starfrost from your graveyard when you do so. And then if it's in defense position, it can attack while in defense position, and you apply its defense for damage calculation. And it also has a similar effect, but this one says if any of your Scareclaw or Kashtira's battles, the opponent's monster that it's battling has its effects negated until the end of the turn. So it's not just a negate the battle phase, it's a negated until the end of the turn, which is incredibly powerful, because it's not just when they attack, it's when either monster attacks a Scareclaw. So it really boosts up the power of the deck. And then finally, we're just playing 1 copy of Vsauce Starfrost, both because it's searchability and because we need it to go into our copy of Vicious Astrolaud. And it's our level 6 tuner to go into our level 10 synchro. So that's your Scareclaw lineup. And then for just some consistency, we are playing 3 copies of Rescue Cat. So you can send this card to the graveyard from the field to special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters from your deck, but their effects are negated, and they're destroyed in the end phase. And that's fine, because you're not going to be using the effects of your level 3 Scareclaws, because all of your level 3 Scareclaws are beasts and they don't have any activated effects. They only have effects while they're in defense position, and they just boost up your other Scareclaws. And if they leave the field, it's really easy to get them back on the field. And moving on to the spells, we're going to play triple copies of Primitive Planet Reichphobia. When this card is activated, you can add a Scareclaw or Vsauce Starfrost from your deck to your hand. Monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each defense position monster on the field, which also boosts with your Scareclaws a lot, because if you're making your Tryhard gain 1500 and your opponent's monsters are all also losing 500, the piercing damage is also way more impactful. Three or more defense position monsters on the field, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. You can only use that effect of Primitive Planet Reichphobia once per turn, and you can only activate one Primitive Planet per turn. So you have to be careful about how you sequence it, because once you activate it, even if it gets negated, the search, you still can't activate another one because you can only activate one per turn. We're going to play triple copies of Scareclaw Arrival. Target one Scareclaw monster or Vsauce Starfrost in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Then if a Scareclaw Link monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So again, we are a very much protect the castle in keeping our Tryhard on the field to inflict as much damage as possible, because it is the ace monster of our deck. And having an in-archetype monster reborn is never a bad thing. Now we're going to play a bunch of one-ofs. We're going to play one Scareclaw Defanging, one Scareclaw Decline, one Scareclaw Splash, and one Scareclaw Twinsaw. So, the Scareclaw Defanging, your opponent cannot target Scareclaw Link monsters or Vsauce Starfrost you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, which is, again, very powerful to defend our Tryhard. Any monster destroyed by battle with a Scareclaw Link monster or Vsauce Starfrost you control is banished instead. And you can banish one Scareclaw Link monster from your field or graveyard to target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. It's got a lot of really powerful effects that just help secure the board and keep it in a controlled game state for you to keep attacking with your Tryhard and keep inflicting damage to your opponent. Scareclaw Decline is kind of a flex spot in the deck, but I really like it. You can target one at Primitive Planet Reichphobia you control or in the graveyard, return it to the hand. Then, if you control Vsauce Starfrost, you can change one face-up monster your opponent controls to face-down defense position. And if three or more defensive monsters are on the field, you can banish this card from your graveyard and add one Scareclaw card from your graveyard back to your hand. So this will also help you recur stuff like your Scareclaw Splash to keep you negating your opponent's stuff to keep you controlling the board. Scareclaw Splash. Once per turn, you can target one Scareclaw monster or Vsauce Starfrost you control. It can attack while in face-up defense position this turn. If it does, apply its attack or defense for damage calculation, whichever is higher. And then if your opponent would activate a card or effect while you control a Scareclaw monster in the extra monster zone, so basically your Tryhard, you can negate the effect and destroy it. And it's important to know that this only negates the effect and not the activation. So if your opponent activates something like Lightning Storm, which says it can only be activated once per turn, your Splash can negate the effect and therefore it cannot be activated again. It's important to know that kind of card ruling, because if you negate the activation, it's as if the card was never even on the field to begin with. And finally, Scareclaw Twinsaw. Tribute one Scareclaw monster, then target two cards your opponent controls, destroy them. And if you sorry, this card is worded in a weird way. So, tribute a Scareclaw to destroy 2 cards your opponent controls. But if you control Vsauce Starfrost, you can banish those 2 cards your opponent controls instead. And then if a link 3 or higher monster is on the field, you can banish this card from your graveyard. For the rest of this turn, neither player can activate the effects of linked monsters on the field, which is awesome for us because the only activated effect on your Tryhard is a monster reborn effect, and that's perfectly cool because you can activate this after you resolve that effect. So again, there's a lot of cards that say control the game state and keep your opponent off of being able to do things. And now we're going to get into some more generic stuff. Play 3 Pot of Prosperity. It is one of the best search cards in the game, and the ban list did leave it at 3. So you can banish 3 or 6 cards from your extra deck, your choice, to look at the top 3 or 6 cards of your deck, and then add one of them to your hand, and then you place the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. But you cannot draw for the rest of the turn after you activate this effect. So make sure any card effects that would help you draw, like your Reichphobia, make sure you activate that before you activate Prosperity. But even if you don't get the draw effect off of Reichphobia, it's not the worst thing in the world. One copy of Reinforcements of the Army and 1 copy of Called by the Grave, just to help you find your Reichphobia and to keep your opponent off of interrupting. And now just for some more interruption, we're going to play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Just any card that says no to your opponent is worth playing, because especially in a deck like this where you're kind of controlling the speed of the game through one boss monster, it's really important to keep your opponent off of powerful cards. And then for some hand traps, we're just playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. So that's it for the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. We're going to start off with 3 copies of Scareclaw Lightheart. It needs 1 Scareclaw or Vsauce Starfrost, and it's important to know that this card can only be link summoned using a monster in the main monster zone, and it only gets its effect in the extra monster zone. But when it is link summoned, you can add 1 Primitive Planet Reichphobia from your deck to your hand. And then if it is in the graveyard and you control Vsauce Starfrost, you can special summon it to a zone next to Vsauce Starfrost, but you can only activate that effect once per turn. But the effect to search the field spell is not once per turn, so as long as you can keep getting it out and your opponent wants to keep negating it, that's fine because you can just keep recurring them. We're going to play 2 copies of Scareclaw Tryhard. This is kind of your boss monster for the deck. So it needs 3 effect monsters. It must be link summoned, and it turns all face-up monsters on the field to defense position, and it is unaffected by the effects of monsters in defense position, which will come up with some of the cards in our extra deck. And then once per turn, you can, if this card is in the extra monster zone, you can target a level 3 Scareclaw monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, add a Scareclaw monster from your deck to your hand. And if you activate that effect, you are locked into Scareclaws for the rest of the turn. So you can summon this out early, but you have to remember that if you want to get that recurability effect, you have to wait, otherwise you're going to lock yourself from the extra deck. 1 copy of Vicious Astrolaud. This card needs to be special summoned by banishing Vsauce Starfrost and 1 monster with 1500 attack, 2100 defense from your graveyard or face-up field. And it's important to know that the other monster besides Vsauce Starfrost to fill this summoning condition is your copy of Scareclaw Reichphobia. And ideally what you would do in this deck is you would synchro summon into your level 10 and then banish them to summon your Vicious Astrolabe. It's kind of the 2-for-1 kind of a combo. But that's it for your Scareclaw stuff in the extra deck. For the tech cards and the Barone replacement, I have decided to play 1 copy of Ruddy Rose Dragon and 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon. Now, while this is not the Omni negate that Baron de Fleur is, it is still a fantastic piece of interruption. So the summoning requirements for Ruddy Rose Dragon are 1 tuner, 1 non-tuner, so we still have that ability to synchro summon it. If this card is synchro summoned, you can banish all cards from the graveyards. We don't want to activate that effect because we want our stuff in the graveyard. Then, if this card was synchro summoned using a Black Rose Dragon or a plant synchro monster as material, you can destroy all other cards on the field. Again, don't really care about that effect. What we do care about is when your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a card, quick effect, you can tribute this card, negate the activation, then you can special summon 1 Black Rose Dragon from your extra deck or graveyard. So again, it's very useful to get out a piece of interruption, because if your opponent decides to activate like a Raigeki, a Lightning Storm, whatever, you tribute it, you summon out your Black Rose Dragon in defense position, and because it's in defense position, your Scareclaw Lightheart, or your Scareclaw Triheart, will be unaffected by Black Rose Dragon's effect to destroy all cards on the field. Again, very powerful 2-card combo that I actually really like in this deck, because we're just protecting the castle. So those are pretty much it for the cards you actually care about in the extra deck. The rest of these are kind of just in case in a specific game state cards, but more realistically, they're your prosperity fodder. So we're going to play 1 Cherubini, Ebon Angel of the Burning Abyss, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Nightmare Griffin, 1 Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax, and 1 Underworld Goddess. So, really quickly, I'm going to run through the effects, but again, you're not really going to use any of these. These can be any 7 cards that you want. So, Cherubini needs 2 level 3s to summon it, and when it is summoned, you can activate the effect to send a level 3 from your deck to the graveyard to increase its attack by the attack of that monster. But what we really care about if you're going to use the effect is that you're just getting all 3 of your Scareclaw names in rotation in the graveyard to use them to summon out your copy of Triheart. IP Masquerena needs 2 non-linked monsters, which is very easy to do in our deck. During your opponent's turn, you can, as a quick effect, link summon using itself and any other cards on your side of the field, and any monster that is summoned using IP Masquerena cannot be destroyed by card effects. Dark the Dark Charmer needs a dark monster and something else. When it is summoned, you can summon a dark monster from your opponent's graveyard, and then when it is destroyed by opponent's card or battle, you can add a dark monster from your deck to your hand with 1500 or less attack, which again is our Reichphobia. Nightmare Unicorn needs 2 or more monsters with different names. When it is link summoned, you can target a card on the field, shuffle it into the deck by discarding 1 card, and if it is co-linked when you activate the effect, after the effect resolves, you can draw 1 card. Nightmare Griffin needs 2 or more monsters with different names. When this card is link summoned, you can discard a card, target a spell trap in your graveyard, set it to your field, but it cannot be activated this turn. Then, if this card was co-linked when you activate the effect, you can draw 1 card. So all the nightmares have the same effect, where if they are co-linked after their effect on someone resolves, you can draw 1 card. Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax needs 2 or more monsters summoned from the extra deck. When this card is link summoned, your opponent can only attack it, and it gains the attack of whatever it's battling. It cannot be targeted by card effects, but it can be destroyed by card effects. So something like Raigeki will handle it, but when it is sent to the graveyard from the field, you can send a card on the field to the graveyard. And finally, the one that I've only ever gone into besides these ones here is your Underworld Goddess. She needs 4 plus effect monsters, but you can also use an opponent's monster for her summon. And when she is summoned, you can negate the effects of all monsters your opponent currently controls. She negates the effect of any card that activates in the graveyard, and she is unaffected by cards except the cards that specifically target her. Now, if you are worried about your opponent's deck and you don't know what to use for prosperity, you can definitely use one of your Lighthearts and these other cards, because IP into Underworld Goddess is an incredibly powerful combo, and realistically you could also swap that out for Avermax, because IP into Avermax is a combo that most decks do not have a way to deal with. But with that being said, that is pretty much it for the deck profile. Please let us know what you think down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to let us know what kind of decks you want to see in the future, and we'll see you next time.